Good evening and welcome to the Shiro Coffee Chat Short. I am Melissa Farmer Hill, a retired Army veteran and the founder of the Shiro Coffee Club, where our mission is to keep the world caffeinated and women veterans celebrated. I'm also the host of Shiro Coffee Chat, which airs every Sunday morning at 9 a.m. Central Standard Time. So if you are up and you are online, please check us out. Tonight, I want to talk about how the Air Force removed the history lessons for the basic training students of the Tuskegee Airmen and the Women Air Force Service Pilots, which are also called WASPs. I know that as another term too, but yeah, the Women Army Service Pilots, WASPs. Now, this is part of the shrapnel that got lodged right into the Air Force from President Trump's executive order on DEI within our federal institutions. This left a lot of people with questions because the Tuskegee Airmen and the WASPs are American history. So we're like, huh? But in my world, to me, we already have DEI. Our American history is inherently diverse, and because of the struggles and the sacrifices of the ones who came before us, America does embody the principles of equity inclusion. Now, it may not always seem fair, but sometimes you get a chance to fight and win. And there are not too many countries you can do that. So let's take a moment to just appreciate that. Appreciate that. Now, let's take a moment to appreciate the incredible contributions of the Tuskegee Airmen and the Women Air Force Service pilots. The Tuskegee Airmen, if you don't know, they were the first Black military aviators in the U.S. Army Air Corps. And if you don't know, the Air Force used to be a part of the Army, U.S. Army Air Corps. Then they got their own service uniforms and budgets and planes and took off from us. But these Black aviators, they overcame segregation and discrimination that Black people today could not even dream of enduring. And they did it because it was necessary. You know, most people only today only want to know, what's in it for me? WIIFM. What's in it for me? But the sacrifice of those men made them one of the most respected fighter groups of World War II. And even in the WASPs, the WASP. Now these were women who flew non-combat missions stateside, but they were a tremendous asset also to the Army Air Corps. Army Air Corps. I mean, both groups, pioneers, uh, the first of their kind, breaking barriers. I mean, at a time when racial and gender equality, it was a far different picture from what we see now. It's a far different picture. Now, when the Air Force initially removed these lessons, it was very jarring. And it was a jarring reminder of how easily parts of history can be erased. Like, remember when we tried all the statues, the Confederate statues and military installations that were named after Confederate general, like how they got all rid of those statues because they were deemed politically incorrect or offensive. But America did have a civil war. It's true. We had a civil war. And guess what? Both sides believed that they were right, but only one prevailed. It's like the Super Bowl, this upcoming Super Bowl. Trust me, it's somebody praying for the Chiefs and it's somebody praying for the Eagles. All right. They both are praying for victory, but only one team will win. Here's my point. But in the aftermath, all the sports analysts. The only one that comes to mind right now is Stephen A. I know it's a lot of them, but that's the only one that comes to mind right now. Um, the sports analysts are going to congratulate the winning team, but they're going to talk about both teams. They're going to talk about who won, and then they're going to talk about the other team and how they underperformed and where they could have performed better in order to explain their Super Bowl loss. So you get my point? Once they play that game, that becomes the history of the Super Bowl, which is part of American history, where we're going to talk about both teams. The Air Force is teaching military history. When they explain the Tuskegee Airmen and the WASP, it's not about politics. It's not about diversity. It's about teaching future airmen, future airwomen, the full scope of the Air Force's history. It's the history of courage, resilience, breaking down barriers. And thankfully, the public and the military communities spoke out loudly and were heard. And by Sunday, the lessons were reinstated. So this is another powerful example of how our voices do matter. Our voices matter, and how collective advocacy of all shapes, creeds, colors, races, genders, religions can correct any misstep that happens in the United States. But let's also recognize something else that's important, I think. While the removal of the lessons were collateral damage from the broader executive order, I really think that the way they were quickly reinstated shows a deep understanding, not only within the military but to the American citizens, that these stories must be preserved. They must be preserved. They're not just history lessons, they're lifelines to understanding our progress as a nation. So, why does this resonate so deeply with me? Because it reminds me that history is not optional. Well, technically, it is his story, but you need the history to understand where you come from to help you to get where you're going. I will never forget the transatlantic slave trade. It's not a bonus, it's not a side note, it's the very foundation of how some of us got here, right? The Shiro Coffee Club is committed to our mission to keep the world caffeinated and women veterans celebrated. We honor both the Tuskegee Airmen and the Women's Air Force service pilots who didn't just serve their country, they shaped it. They shaped it. Don't forget that. Their stories are woven into the very fabric of America. Their struggles, their triumphs, it, it's how we got where we are today. And I want to talk about, like, I just want to kind of lean into some Army history. I won't. Maybe I'll do that at another time. But it's it's in me to go. But do you know what we are today? We are the most formidable and diverse all volunteer armed forces service of the world, or that the world has ever seen. That's deep. That's deep. There's no one out there like us. No one. Okay. Digress. I just want to say thank you for joining me today. And as always, keep your heart full and your coffee strong. I'll see you tomorrow. This is day 21.